Good morning and welcome to the Sunday service. This morning, as usual, we are going to do the practice, the loving kindness meditation. Reverend Chandasara is going to lead the meditation. After the meditation, Dhamma teacher, Nepal Dhamma teacher, Sailesh Maharjan is going to give a Dhamma talk. After the Dhamma talk, you can have question and answer. The last item is going to be a chanting. So right now, Chandasara is going to start the leading the meditation.
Hello, good morning to everyone. Now we are going to practice a loving kindness meditation, and I'm going to read out guidelines, and after these you can start meditating for a while until you hear the bell sound. So let's start. May all the living beings be well, happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. So keeping these in mind, we will spread loving kindness to all the living beings. Or to the group, we ourselves also belong to the living beings, the group. And we spread this metta thought to all the 7 directions, covering 7 directions of the universe. That is northern, eastern, southern, western, upward direction, downward direction, and across all the directions. So now let's spread loving kindness to all the living beings, as I said before, until you hear a bell sound. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now it's time to start the Dhamma talk. I believe the Sailesh Maharjan is ready. Are you there, Cyrus?
Yes, Bante. Good morning, Bante.
All right. Nice to hear again, and thanks for the being with us today. So you can have at least 35 minutes to talk, and then the question and answer. You can start right now. Thanks again.
Thank you, Bante. Good morning, everyone. And again, I want to thank Santa Bante for having me again. And it's so nice to see a big crowd, even it is online. I was thinking about to continue what I started in last talk. And if you missed it, I'll just remind quickly. I was sharing some teachings about Buddha based on the Eightfold Path, the Noble Path. And when we talk about Buddhist teaching, now it's easy to follow someone's teaching without asking questions, because as humans, we don't want to think a lot. We like to see what is right and wrong and just take that direction to make our life. However, the Buddha is different teacher. He allows us to question about his path, every step of his path. We don't need to just follow the Dhamma because Buddha said so. And there are so many examples. One time, there's one famous story about the Buddha. He has 32 great human characteristics, physical characteristics. So there's one Brahmin, he had a doubt about him. And it's a long story, so I'll just briefly tell you. There's two interesting characteristics they call Mahapurusa Lakhana. One of them is, I don't know how to translate in English, it's he has a hidden his genitals. And his tongue is so white he can cover his face. Now, it would be weird for Buddha to stick his tongue out all the time to show those characteristics, or even his private parts. So this Brahmin was after the Buddha for 6 months, examining one by one, and he saw 30 of them. Every move, every thing that Buddha did, he was observing, he was learning about him, and he saw 30 of them, but 2 of them you can't see without Buddha's permission. And he was still not ready to accept Buddha as the Buddha. So he was there around the temple, and Buddha asked, "What's wrong with you?" And he told, I saw 30 of them, but I don't know if you have the rest of those 2. And Buddha, sure enough, he showed those 2 other characteristics. So the point is, we can discuss totally in a different session what are those qualities. But the point was, Buddha was okay to tell people, show people what is to be a Buddha and what are those qualities. And he didn't stop him, you can't ask me those questions kind of situation. So when we talk about his teaching, you can cross-question in every direction. Why should I follow? So these 8 noble paths, I started last meeting, I talked about first 4 of them: Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa, Samma Kammanta, and Samma Vacha. So those are 4 first noble paths. And why it is called noble? It is a moral path. It's a middle way of life. And this noble path doesn't make sense unless you know where you're heading to. So the word Samma is, in English, you translate as right path or right view, right understanding. Now, when you say right, logically, you might think that, well, it could be right for you, but it may not be right for me, because it could be just based on individual preference. But Buddha used this right as Samma, the word Samma, with very comprehensiveness. He looked at the path you choose to make decision with considering every possible outcomes and downsides. So starting from samma ditthi, right view, or other translation is samma, right understanding. That is very important one. Without right understanding, you cannot start this journey. Just like without opening your eyes, you cannot go anywhere. You have to see what you're looking at. And why do we need this right understanding? Well, we as human, we have a lot of dispositions. In Buddhism, we believe in sankhara. We've been through, forget about past life. Even in this life, we have done so many good and bad activities. So all those good and bad influence what we see, and knowledge we gained in like all this graduation, the degrees, all the knowledge that will kind of occlude your sight, occlude your vision. So if you take two people, one from psychology, one from philosophy, they will look at things from what is their discipline. So it's easy to color what you see. And what we try to do with right understanding is, can you clear that color? Can you remove that, whatever color of glass you're wearing, and see things as they are? In Pali, we call yatha bhuta jnana, seeing as things are, which is very hard. You might think like, I can do that. It's easy. Well, I see things as they are. Not really. We like to see things with the way we like it, the way we want to see them. So there are two extreme ways we go. Either we see them as like a pleasurable or like pleasant things, or we want to see things as unpleasurable and we want to move it away. So this Eight Noble Path is helping us how to remove that color, how to remove that, the filter that you have, and try to see things as they are. And that is the middle way. And when you start with right understanding, then next step is right conception, or samma sankappa, your thought. What kind of thoughts do you have? And since it is a moral life, moral practice, it tells you what are immoral sides. So the bad thoughts, and I talked about that. I want to move on to the fifth one, samma ajiva. So we talked about those four: samma, right view, right thought, right speech, and right action. Once you talk about those four, actually the three of them, speech, action, and thought, they will help you to choose what is right livelihood. That is samma ajiva. Now, right livelihood is the opposite of wrong livelihood. There are many teachings for people like us, householder, lay people, and Buddha gave what kind of profession should you choose. There are few professions that Buddha found should not be practiced, like selling poison, selling animals, selling weapons. So those are not approved by the Buddha. Doing medical help, government job, teaching. So some of those professions, and I will bring those topics later, but choosing those professions that doesn't hurt you, that doesn't hurt other people, and that doesn't hurt both parties. And these three categories we always use to define what is wholesome. So things that you do doesn't hurt yourself, hurt others, and both parties. That is technically definition of wholesome action. And when you choose that path, and when you follow those moral guidelines, it takes you to right livelihood. And it's hard to stay on path. I've been in Buddhist life for 14, 15 years. It is still the same case with me. It's not easy to, easy to talk, but hard to practice. So when you choose those paths, that's why we have the sixth one. The sixth noble path is right effort or exertion, putting that effort all the time. And Buddha helped us to understand how to keep that right effort up. And the very first thing in right effort is if you have done anything bad, or if you have been practicing something wrong, unwholesome, uppannanang akusalanang dhammanang, the unwholesome action that you've been doing, you have to put effort to stop that. And if you have not done anything bad, put effort not to generate, not to produce those bad actions. So trying to set aside those bad actions and also not producing bad ones. And the correct part is, the positive side is anupanna ng kusalanang dhamma ng upadaya. Put effort to produce or generate some wholesome actions. For example, let's say you have never practiced meditation, or you have never done any charity, you've been always thinking about it but never tried to do it. Probably that's where you need your effort. And if you have been doing that, if you've been practicing generosity, practicing morality, practicing meditation, sometime we start slowing down in that path. That's where you need the right effort. And effort is such a crucial quality. It can become power, it can become knowledge. When you have right amount of effort, you can achieve the goals that you set for yourself, especially in this journey of enlightenment. Because when you have too much effort, that may make your, when you practice meditation, you're so determined to achieve certain goal, there are monks who fail to do so. So Buddha gave this analogy. If you are a musician, when you tune your strings for, let's say, a guitar, if you tight too much or if you keep it too loose, then it might break or it may not produce good sound. So right effort is identifying where do you lack those qualities. And that's the sixth noble path. And the seventh one is Samma Sati, which is very popular in Western world because of how psychology has used mindfulness as a part of their therapeutic treatments. Now, when you say right mindfulness, it's a very interesting topic in science and also in Buddhism, because I think I mentioned earlier in previous talk, when you have this set of tool, you try to take one ingredient out of it, one tool out of it, and you ignore the rest. Just like, I think I used the analogy of medical, medicines. Now in the East, we use herbs. I call herb. I don't know which one is the right pronunciation. So we use herb to treat illnesses. For a simple example, turmeric. It's a great medicine to kill poison. So I remember when I was a monk, we get like infection in our toes. So my teacher taught us to, smash some turmeric and cover your toe, bandage for a few days, and it sucks all the, ooze out of that infection and it heals. So we use the whole piece of turmeric. We don't extract only the medicine that works for infection. So my point is, when you have one medicine, you don't want to just take what is useful for you, but you need to look at the whole teaching. So most of the time I have dealt with people in temple, and they come to temple, they tell us, I don't want to bother about the precepts, I don't want to bother about morality, I just want to practice meditation. Well, if you look at the Buddha's guidelines, he tells us, Sile patithaya narosa panyo, chittang panyang chabhavi. You have to establish yourself in this morality. Once you have prepared your ground, then you can plant good seeds. If you just ignore, I don't want to dig anything, I don't want to put any fertilizer, I just want to plant trees, may not work best for you. So morality is the basis. It's the foundation you lay. Once you have that, practicing meditation becomes a lot easier. So for mindfulness, if you have not followed the precepts and even tried to follow them, you can try to meditate. But trust me, you can't go too far. Why? Because you're not two different person. The person who's meditating and who's supposed to keep his moral guidelines clear are not two different people. It's the same person. And you're dealing with the obstacles that comes in your mind. And going back to, yatha bhuta jnana, seeing things as they are, will be harder if you have not tried to clear your character, clear some of those bad practices. It will be obstructing your journey. So when you look at mindfulness, sammasati, I think the word was coined by Rich Davids. It's a perfect word, mindfulness, that your mind is present in that given situation. And where do you focus? Well, in detail, there's a long sutta, Satipatthana Sutta, where Buddha give description about mindfulness. And in there, you will see two aspects. One is about mind, and the other one is about body. So kaya and chitta. And when you look at body, your body can experience pain, pleasure, and neither pain nor pleasure experience. Now, those all experience are called Vedana, the experiences, the sensations. And again, going back to the way we want to see. Now, I'm sitting here. I already feel a little bit of soreness or a little ache in my back. Now, when you practice meditation, I want to dive in a little bit. Look at the pain from microscopic level. If you experience pain, I'll tell you where you produce karma. Now, if you have knowledge about karma, that's how we continue in this cycle of samsara, right? We produce karma, good and bad, and we get the result, and it goes on and on. And now, if you look at that simple experience of pain, the physical sensation of that pain is inevitable. It will be there. And if you cut yourself, if you have injured yourself, there will be that physical pain. If I talk about drugs in my class. So in opioid, we talk about how pain sensation is sent to your brain, and brain produces its own pain relief system. So I don't know all that detail, but the physical the science tells us the pain is true. It is there. But using that pain can convert into some kind of karma. How does that happen? So when you experience phassa paccaya vedana, vedana paccaya tanha, tanha paccaya upadana. So when there is a contact, there is sensation. And when there is sensation, you take that sensation with two ways. Either you like it, you want to keep it for a longer time, or you hate it, you don't like it, you want to push it away. So those two ways of dealing with sensation. And that happens, you either like it or dislike it because you forgot it is just a pain, it's ephemeral. It's not everlasting experience. Even the pain disappears, the thought that you attach to that pain can produce karma. So anytime you experience pain, you took that experience and you generated some negative thoughts. In your mind, you already thought, this is so bad, this is awful, I hate it, I just want this pain to go away. So maybe pain is not the same anymore, but you already produced some thoughts with negative root or dvesa, or we call hatred root. So when you have that hatred root in those thoughts, that is the production of karma. And because of that production of karma, it will produce results. Now, what happens in mindfulness? If you have experience trying meditating, what we do is starting with your breath, starting with your belly rising and falling, learning to focus. When you experience that pain, instead of looking at that pain with domanassa, with anger or hatred, or holding on to that, this is so good, I want to keep it forever, what you do is you take it as it is. You take that experience as an experience rather than owning it, rather than trying to keep it for longer or push it away forever. And when you do that, that's where you stop producing karma. And when you don't produce any of those negative or positive thoughts, well, that's like a momentary enlightenment. Even for that second, you stop producing karma. So that's where the sammasati is so powerful tool. It helps you to identify how body experience works and how your attachment to those experiences can come. And if you use it in a proper way, you start from, if you know those 12 steps of causality, starting from Avidya paccaya sankhara, starting from ignorance all the way, that would be another topic for us. When you get to sensation, phassa paccaya vedana. From sensation, there is from contact, there is sensation. From sensation, there is attachment. You stop there. You stop producing any negative or positive karma, and that will be end of the cycle, at least for that moment. And same thing with the thought, and same thing with these, our consciousness, that's the chitta, and the concomitant factors, those are thoughts. Now, anytime you're sitting there, try to meditate or try to just relax, your mind cannot go blank. There's no way, unless you're dead or you're in like a super, I don't know, there's a coma, or it still doesn't stop. From Buddhist point of view, mind doesn't stop. And I have heard people, I want to meditate so I can wipe my mind out or just blank. Well, good luck with that, because mind will never go blank. It's always at some level, either it is in a very gross level, it's producing new thoughts, or in a very subtle level. In a subtle level, we are constantly thinking and producing new and old thoughts. Now, this thought can be very powerful. The last talk I mentioned, the thought alone can produce karma. Some of those thoughts could be aversion. If you look at the scale of negative thoughts, the first level, dislike, then you anger, the next one is anger, then hatred, then aversion. So until those first three stages, disliking, anger, and hatred, they could be just thought. It can produce karma if you act on those thoughts. But aversion is so powerful that thought alone can produce karma. So with thought, you hold on to some of those negative thoughts, and year upon year, you make more copies. Right? Just one single experience, you produce more copies of it. That's where you're producing sankhara. And when you have sankhara, you're gonna get the result. The disposition will produce results. So one example there, I had an incident. A person, when I was in temple, came to me, tried to talk his old hatred toward one of his friends, and it's an unfortunate story. He has been cultivating this hatred toward this friend for 12 years. Didn't see him, didn't talk to him, didn't know, living in two different countries. And he came and told me that his friend died 5 years. After 5 years, he learned that his friend was dead. So he hated for 7 years when the person was alive. And 5 more years, he continued hating that person. And that impression, in Buddhism, there's a sutta, I can't remember the topic. The Buddha used analogy of animal looking at the mirror. When you put a dog in front of the mirror, the dog sees the reflection, right? And when the dog moves away, in dog's mentality is that there is another dog. Even he left the mirror, there's still the dog in the mirror. So he keeps coming back and barking at the mirror, because the dog believes there is something lasting in front of the mirror. Even the dog leaves. That's a very wrong impression about mirror. Same thing with our thoughts. So if you have a thought and it can linger for a long time, the time passes and you still believe that the person and the thing, what happened to you, is still actual, it's still real. See, that's where we get wrong with this, the experience. We think whatever happened to us is gonna last forever. Well, it depends on who you're talking about, how you're taking it. So, right, mindfulness is helping us. When you have a thought, it arises in your mind, it will try to distract you, it will try to take you to the past, take you to the future, but it's just a passing thought. And if you learn to stay with the present moment, practice that, staying with the present moment, not producing new karma, that's how Nibbana is possible. Enlightenment is not a place, it's not like a tangible thing. And sometimes it's hard to tell people and explain them, mainly because we want to believe that it's a place where you go, it's a place where you achieve, or where you arrive. Well, not true. it's a journey. It's a very progressive journey. And if you were to get there, I always tell this in my talks, that we all are in that path. In look at this world and people around us. How many people are motivated at achieving that goal? Not many of them, because we have our own businesses. They take care of them. They're not interested in this path of enlightenment. Well, we have been interested. And probably, I don't know past lives, I can't tell if you guys have been following this Dhamma, but I know one thing: this practice of Dhamma is not one life thing. We've been searching this knowledge, we've been in this path for a long time, and that's why we still continue in this path. So going back to practicing right mindfulness, even for 1 minute, that's where when I taught in temple, this meditation class, I try to encourage and try to put myself in their shoes. Try to practice few minutes. What that means is you stop producing karma for a few minutes, and that is the ending of the future becoming. So that's a very important part in right mindfulness. And the last one is right concentration. And that's one important lesson from right concentration is, how do we develop equanimity, which is very difficult task, because we like to take sides. We like to take, people who we agree with and not agree, dislike people, those who don't agree with us. So upekha, that's like taking a close look. That's the meaning of word upekha. And upekha is possible if you know both sides. What happens if you take the extreme sides? Either you like it or dislike it. What happens there? And, when you know those extremes, you learn to take the middle path, try to be the equanimous. And this comes play in your mindfulness practice. Whenever you have thoughts, pain, sensation, you like to take sides, but you're trying to train your mind not to take sides. I'll give one example from other teachings in Buddhism, the four Brahma Vihara, for practices where Buddha explained in a mother, father, and Buddha himself has these qualities: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So why parents have this equanimity? Maybe I'm not talking about every parents. Let's say we talk about ideal parents, those who are actually taking care of their kids. So in those parents, they have this upekha. Imagine a parent has multiple kids. One kid is very successful, the other one is not. But with the way they treat both of them is with some equanimity. So that's how we try to understand, what this equanimity is. You don't love more or less, you have that equal treatment to both of them. Now, this Eight Noble Path from right understanding to right concentration, it is a moral path. It is a middle path which help us to see how to get to this enlightenment. And that journey is impossible if we don't put some effort, if we don't try to see what should we do. And it can start from daily practices. It can start from listening to Dhamma and listening to some teachings, reading some Dhamma. Because among, in Buddhist suttas, Buddha always look at people who follow, who has been faithful to teachings. And there was one time, one Bhante asked the Buddha, who would you choose to teach Dhamma first? And his answer was the person who has more faith in teaching. Because imagine we are going in this journey that, unfortunately, right now, I don't know if there is any enlightened person. I don't know in my knowledge. There was one monk I knew from Myanmar. I met with him, and when I talked to him, there was some qualities that Buddha explains about enlightenment. So besides him, he passed away in 2016. After that person, I don't know any person, any individual who has been in that stage of enlightenment, whether the first stage or second or all the way to fourth. But when you don't have like a model to follow, it's hard to keep us in track. That's why we need some faith, we need some Dhamma group who will help us to identify what are some obstacles. And knowing this path, some people are not motivated at learning the path. Well, it's just like you don't want to know the rules, you just want to do the math. Well, you need to know the rules so you do it correct way. So if you were to go in this journey, and anytime you have doubt about this journey, the Buddha's teaching, I think I explained this last time. If you ask a teacher what is the Buddha's core teaching, and if they tell you these 8 noble paths are the core teaching, it will help to identify the correct path. And this path is to avoid 2 extremes, which is going to the pleasure path, going to the self-mortification path. And these 2 extremes, it's pretty common. In Buddha's time, it was a different version. Now we have in a different version. But we have to avoid those 2 paths. And it's a middle path. And this can lead to at least basing yourself on morality, practicing few minutes of meditation. What you're doing is you're chipping off some of those karma. And that should be our goal. And if you are good in this journey, you may achieve the enlightenment within, I can't tell, but in Satipatthana Sutta, actually, the Buddha guarantees if you were to practice those 4 mindfulness, 4 foundation of mindfulness, Kaya-anupassana, Vedana-anupassana, Chitta-anupassana, and Dhamma-anupassana, contemplation on body, sensation, mind, and thought. If you practice that for 7.5 years, you are likely to achieve a goal in this very life. So Buddha guarantees that. So it's not all based on someone's teaching or someone's belief. It is possible to see that goal and to see that accomplishment. And I want you guys to continue your practice and please keep these paths together rather than choosing one and ignoring others, because it will make a complete journey. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sailesh. If you have any question, you can ask right now. What's on
Yes, Victor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I want to thank you again for a very wonderful talk. Just
Thank you, Victor.
that you took the time to do this. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, Selwyn, if you have any question, please ask.
Yes, thank you, Sailesh, for the talk. A thought occurred to me while you were talking about physical pain as you're sitting down or meditating, and how having a thought to it creates a sankhara. I think, yes, there's physical pain, but after a while, the body, it doesn't matter how comfortable the position is gonna experience physical pain. And I find it that when I'm meditating, sometimes I'm able to just be with it, but that's not the case most of the time. So I guess, what kind of thought can I have or approach to when there is physical pain, maybe because I have bad posture, I'm not sitting correctly, that will counteract the, this is painful, I need to change my position?
In practice, when you look at the Satipatthana Sutta, the teaching of mindfulness foundation, there are a few ways you can look at physical pain. Let's say you're sitting there, you start feeling pain. It's not best to ignore it because it will come back, it will bother you because it's there. So what you can do is using pain as the object of meditation. Now, for example, you're focusing on your breath. Now you start feeling pain in your back. Now you cannot focus on your breath anymore because this is very distracting, correct? Now, when you are distracted by pain, forget about breath. You don't need to stay with your breath. And that's not mindfulness. It's just staying with your breath is not mindfulness. Sometimes people challenge, let me see how long I can just focus on breath. That's a training part. You want to use some kind of presence of like in and out breath so you can stay focused. Let's say you have done that for a few minutes, pain started, shift your attention from breath. Don't need to count or even worry about how your breath is going in and out. You take your attention to the pain, the spot you feel, and you mentally observe that. Now, the challenge is not to cure the pain. There's no way you can do unless you move. But again, if you move, then there will be another spot that you feel pain. So we're not trying to move. Again, you're trying to use some effort. Now, some level of pain you can tolerate. What you do, you go to the pain and you observe that pain and study the pain, the nature of pain. Now, there are a few ways in Buddha's teaching, the Buddha explains if that pain is the same amount or is it increasing. So rather than looking at pain and feeling upset or sad or angry about it, you observe, you study the pain. You watch that pain, whether it is the same intensity or it is getting worse. And if you notice that, that's where you contemplate on. This is getting bigger and bigger, or it's getting smaller and smaller. Is it moving from one spot to another? Let's say this is the back and you try to focus in that particular spot, whether it is moving back and forth or it is in the same spot, whether it is getting intensive or milder, or it is spreading. Is it spreading in a more area or it's getting smaller? So when you do that, what you're doing is your mind needs some kind of feeding. It needs thoughts. So what you did was you used pain to observe what is happening with the pain. Most of the time, as you observe, you will notice it changes. And that's where you try to experience impermanence. So the pain is not going to stay in the same intensity, same place, or same level. It changes. And your first-hand experience of impermanence. And that's where you can put your mind. Let's say that doesn't go away. The pain is really bad. It's going to hurt you so much and you cannot focus at all. At that point, Buddha advises change your posture. If you couldn't sit anymore, stand up and do a few minutes of walking meditation. So when you do walking meditation, it's actually a lot beneficial for meditators. So you're sitting for 30 minutes. Now it's hard to tolerate. It's very distracting. You don't need to torture. That would be self-mortification. You don't need to torture. I'm going to sit for 1 hour no matter what. That would be too extreme. 30 minutes, it's disturbing. It's affecting. You cannot tolerate, and it's really distracting your practice. Stand up, walk for 5 minutes, then you go back and sit. So that would help. And the other part is when you have those thoughts, let's say, I think you didn't ask about thoughts, but I want to add, when you have those, let's say, distracting thoughts, you can have thoughts of desire, you can have thoughts of anger, thoughts of laziness. You're like, you can't sit, I'm done, this is too long. Those kind of thoughts. Instead of allowing those thoughts to work on you, use that thought for contemplation. So in practice, what you're doing is you're being with the present experience and using that experience for your practice. I don't know if I asked your question, Selvin.
Yes, you did in a way, because I think the question was more what to do when I'm outside the actual practice.
Oh.
And I think, but I think to your point is you carry that experience when I'm sitting on the couch or when I'm in the car. So
yes,
thank you.
So practice is it's like working out. When you go to the gym, you lift some weights. You're not going to keep lifting weight all the time. You do that intense training for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but that strength will come handy when you have to lift a bike or you have to change your wheel in your car. So the idea is we need that some kind of training, and when you are not in training, that skill will come handy. You're sitting on the couch, let's say that's distracting, probably use that moment to meditate. And I used to do that when I was traveling a lot in airport. You know, when you have to wait for 5 hours layover somewhere in Delaware or somewhere in Texas, it's hard to sit there and use a few minutes to just, you know, observe people walking by and like just seeing rather than analyzing them. So you can take it outside of the sitting, your practice.
Thank you.
Yes, Steve, I think you raised your hand earlier. I'll
Really,
get to you, Ty.
it seems like in Christianity, like the Ten Commandments are your guide to making life better. And it's full of things that you do not do. It's don't do this and don't do that. In Buddhism, it's a matter of do this and do that. And if you follow this, then it leads you to less suffering and a better quality of life. So there are different sets of circumstances to guide you to that. I was wondering if you ever reflected on that. That Christianity is full of don'ts, and Buddhism is well, it has its don'ts also, but it seems to focus more on the do this instead of the don't do this. Did you,
Steve? Thank you. Yeah, I think that was a comment, right?
Yeah. Well, I was wondering if you thought about Christianity and Buddhism in this respect.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think Buddha also that in addition to that, you know, Buddha asks you to do this, do that. He also asks, what if you do this? He gives you a chance to think. For example, what do you think, monk? Is body permanent or impermanent? So let them answer the question. The people, if you know that your body has been changing and you experience that pain and no pain, again pain, no pain, then the monk will answer, yes, it is impermanent. If something is impermanent, is it happiness or suffering? Then if things change in your body and it doesn't stay the way you want, it is suffering. And if it is suffering, is it yours or not? Then they would say, no, it's not mine. So Buddha's way of teaching is to let you decide, let you think what this teaching means in your life. So it also has some aspect, some teachings that what should not be done. And again, Buddha doesn't say don't do, he would say, if you do this, this is the consequence. If you kill, this is the consequence. If you save lives, this is the consequence. It's more like your choice. You choose what to do. This is what happens. If A, then B is the result. If X, Y is the result. You choose whether you do A or X. So he tried to, again, give us power to choose what should be done and what not to do. I think I'll take Ty's question.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering, how do you actually help reduce or mitigate somebody else's pain in various situations? For instance, an older person who is isolated and you're not really there, or somebody who might be in the hospital because of COVID. But how do you do it? I mean, I have tried the metta of compassion. I mean, I chanted that kind of thing. But is there any kind of way of thinking about how to mitigate someone else's pain? I mean, we have already talked about how to mitigate one's own pain, but how about somebody else's? How do you do that?
I think you already tried that, Ty. Now, when it comes to others' pain or even gain, there's not much we can, directly do something to reduce or increase. Now, if you are causing, then you definitely can change what you're doing. But let's say, like your example, somebody's in hospital, suffering a lot. I mean, it's so kind of you that you felt that pain and you want to reduce that. That alone is a nice gesture. Other than that, I don't want to give you false, teaching, but that would propose, can you talk to the person? Can you help the person to maybe some skill that he can use or she can use, you know. I don't have like a clear, I don't want to tell, like, you know, chant for 30 hours, then the person will be free from suffering. No, I don't believe on those. It's a practice, and your compassion, and you are feeling pain because you're compassionate to that person. And that's a nice way to start. You know, even loving kindness is to show that, you know, may everybody be free from suffering. Unfortunately, you do that, but the people don't be free from suffering. What you're doing is you're yourself telling that I may not spread violence or trouble to other people. So if I can, the best thing I can tell is telling the person about some kind of simple practice. You know, what Buddha would do in somebody who's dying, you know, he cannot save someone from dying. He's not a savior like that. What he does was he would go to them and try to give them some reflection in all good deeds that they have done. In Sri Lanka, there is this famous king. He used to have a book of merit. So I'm sure Bantis know a lot more detail. This king used to write every good deed he has done in life in a book. So it's called Pimpota. It's a book of merit. So when the king was dying in his age, his people bring that book and read all those stories, all this good deed that he has done. And of course, the king was suffering, but when he went in his memory, all those good moments that things he did, he died happily because, you know, he was able to recall lots of things that he has done. So something like that could work, that could help. And again, we need that person's involvement, and we need him to participate in some kind of reflection. And this is also true about in temple. People come to me and they want to bless their kids in New York or Texas or Virginia. One day I am here to do blessing for my child, and she's in campus, she can attend. Well, it's not going to help. You cannot send merit like in the UPS or in FedEx. It doesn't work that way. The person has to be involved. At least tell him to set 10 minutes to think about it, or join through phone, or listen to those activities. That's the only way human can help humans. And we cannot transfer merits. That's another misunderstanding. You know, I cannot give you merit. What I can do is the word in Pali, you know, punya anumodana, which is anumodana means being happy with the person. So that's what we can do. We can tell the person, this is what you have done. That's an amazing service you have done. And that's something I can share. Thai, I don't know if that was enough, helpful enough.
Yes. How do you spell that word?
Oh, anumodana. Let me type that.
Okay.
Anumodana. Yeah, anumodana is modati, the word Pali. Modati means be happy, being happy. Anumodati means being happy with the person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have one more question. Nick, you can ask your question.
Thank you for your talk, Sailesh. It was great. My question is about right effort. When I'm sitting in meditation and I recognize an unwholesome thought arising, I understand that I am meant to negate this unwholesome thought and develop wholesome thoughts. That's my understanding. Mm-hmm. So as I recognize an unwholesome thought arising, this morning I'm in meditation and a lustful thought comes up. So do I look at the thought and accept it and recognize it? Or is that somehow giving it value? Or what do I do with the thought? Because of course I'm sitting in meditation and many thoughts come up. Yeah. But when I recognize an unwholesome thought, do I lean into it, stare at it, name it, and then go back to breath, or do I use maybe one of the heart practices instead to move away from the unwholesome thought? How do I handle this?
Thank you, Nick. That's a very important question. It's common when we try to sit down and meditate. Well, one way, I think you have done that to some extent based on what you just told me. When you have those thoughts, lustful, hateful, ignorant thoughts that comes to our mind, you don't want to negate. You don't want to just reject, this is useless, I don't want it, or this is so good, I want to keep it, kind of two extremes. When thought comes, your job is to, again, kind of diffuse yourself from the thought, separate yourself from the thought, because thoughts, we get all kind of thoughts. If we start acting on it, I don't know what's going to happen to us, right? We get a lot of good and bad thoughts. So when thought arises, it's like you're seeing this bubble, it's like a water bubble. You saw that, and there are a few things you can do. Number one, it's one type of hindrances. So you recognize, more than like accepting, you recognize it's a thought with lust. It's a thought with desire. And instead of feeding, that's a very tricky situation. As soon as you pick that thought, you're likely to produce another thought, adjunct to that. So your job is to, thought arise, this is a lustful thought, desire, thought of desire, stop there. Instead of like, what kind of thought is this? You just like stop there, it's a lustful thought. And as you watch that thought, now if you feed, it becomes stronger. If you take that thought and like, okay, this is really bad, I want to get it out, then it becomes stronger, because there's a rebound effect in our consciousness. You like, if you use this example, close your eyes, don't think about pink elephant for 1 minute. Well, now pink elephant is the object, you cannot not think about it, it will rebound. So if you take that thought as, I want to remove it, it becomes more forceful. So your thought arised, it's a lustful thought, you observed it. And as you observe, be careful not to produce more along with that thought. And it becomes weaker. The other way, this is little different practice. If you happen to have more of those thoughts frequently, lustful or hateful thoughts frequently, there is a counter practice which you can try. So one of them, for if you have a lot of thought with desire, the counter practice is contemplating on repulsion. You think about human nature, the impermanence in body, how we grow old, age, die, and the body decays. So that's a little longer practice, but sometimes it works. Each hindrance has the opposite practice. And if you have hateful thought more often, it's so hard to shake, it always keeps coming back, then you're supposed to practice loving kindness more often. So it counterbalances the hateful thought. And if you have a lot of thought with laziness or lethargy, well, then you have to practice contemplation on light, looking at the bright side, practicing the bright area. So for you want to try, see if you can just observe it as it arises, and just keep observing as it arises and not feeding it. If it doesn't go away, you can rest and you can try to contemplate on some of the impermanence of life. And that it works to some extent, because now what you're doing is you're making yourself aware, giving this panya, wisdom, to yourself. Well, whatever I'm clinging to is not actually the way things are. I'm clinging to things that is I manifested in my mind, and it can lead to long journey, versus like contemplating an impermanence of life can help to reduce those kind of thoughts. And Nick, there's like you will have all those thoughts. It's gonna happen. There's a Buddhist story about if you have 5 different types of, actually 6 types of animals You captured a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a monkey, a dog, and let's say those 5. And I chose 5 different, they have different habitats. So when you have those 5 animals, you tie them in a one string. They have like 5 nuts, they tie to each other, and you put in the ground. Now each one will try to pull the rest to their habitats. So the monkey will try to go to the tree, bird will try to fly, and so on. Now how do we tame them? Well, the tool is you put a strong pole in the middle of the ground, and you tie those 6 animals in that pole. Do they stop pulling? No, they will still try to pull, but they will pull to some extent. At some point, they will be exhausted, and they will be just lying down around the pole. Right? They're tired. They can't do anymore. So same thing happens with our thoughts. We can have these 6 senses bringing so much information, and they will try to pull every direction. Sight, smell, taste, touch, thoughts, feeling. Those sensations will try to pull us into different directions. The pull is the mindfulness. Can you use that pull to exhaust them? And you will see a little bit of game there, a little bit of play. They're trying to pull each direction, but as they try and you keep that pole steady, eventually they will calm down and they will be exhausted. So hopefully that was a little useful for you.
That was very useful. Thank you.
Mr. Sailesh, there are one more question in the chat room, YouTube. Could you please answer that shortly about that question?
Yes, Bhante, I'm reading it now. Difficulty of translating Buddhist principles for American audience. I think difficulty, there are a few barriers, I would say, Carla, because number one is the language difference. Definitely, I know few monks, those who are educated in the East, some Sri Lanka, some Thailand, Myanmar. They do a good job translating because they read both languages. And but other than that, it will be challenging because of the language the way we talk. And I'm not talking about English per se, not just the English, but there's a difference in what you say and what it means. There's a connotation, the implied meanings that can be a challenging. And the other part is the cultural difference, because most of these Buddhist ideas come from the East, where it has the strong foundation. And when you try to apply in the Western world, then it's a little challenging, because thinking from bigger idea, like the East is more collectivistic world, and the West is more individualistic world. But that shouldn't stop you from practicing. Actually, Buddhism is more individualistic than collectivist. You need to free yourself first before you help others. And well, other than that, maybe the language of knowledge, the Pali language is another tricky word, a tricky place where Buddhist terms, Pali terms like the word samma, the English meaning is right. Now, that's not the best fit for the word samma, because right could be, again, it's a debatable. It's right for you, maybe not right for me. It's right in one situation, not in the other. But Pali word samma means well taught. That's another meaning for samma, well taught or fully comprehended. So that's a problem. And other than that, I don't know, if you can be more specific, I might be able to help, but those are a few things: culture, language barrier, and the other one big thing I saw.
All right. There are one more last question. We cannot have more. It's Maria's question. I think Maria is in chat room also. That's the last one, please.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. I was reading the last one. Information on those area. I was referring to a sutta. I can't remember. I think it's called Tasatta. I'll try. I'll do my research too. It's a 6 animals. That's the sutta I was telling Nick about. And the counter practice, it is in a Buddhist encyclopedia called The Path of Purification. It gives it's a very thick book, and it's an encyclopedia, of course, should be big. That book gives a very detail on what kind of counter practice you should use when you have those hindrances. And oh, I see. Yeah, it's the path of purification. Yeah, the other place is like attending these kind of talks definitely give you some insight about different principles. I think I have this book. Let me quickly take a look. Bante, is it okay? Find that. Yeah, I couldn't find it right now, but I think I'll keep in mind. I'll take a note on that. I'll find that sutta, the one I was explaining to you, Nick. You're welcome.
So you gave the answer ready. That's the sutra, I believe also.
Oh, that was right, Bante?
Yes, I think
okay.
We have 2 monks saying that's the sutra.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. I was. My memory is still good then.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Mr. Sai Maharjan, and hope to see you next time, next month. Next month, we will call you. Again, thank you for all the people who participate today for the program. And we're going to chant few things, few pages, page 4 and page 10. And I believe next week, Venerable Panyaloka is going to give a Dhamma talk. And the last Dhamma talk of this last Dhamma talk about this month, I believe the Victor is going to give.
Thank you, Bante, for having me.
All right, thank you. Again, we confirm in that sutra, Tasatta Sutra. Yes, that's the sutra. Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you.
Bante. I wish you guys all Happy New Year in advance. I'll see you next year.
You too. Take care of yourself, okay?
Bante.
All right, we're going to chant a little bit to page 1 and page 4. Then the service is going to finish today.
Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami. Bing beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Deluding passions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Dharma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. Suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health relief. Om Mani Padme
Thank you again. Thank you for everybody. By the power of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, you all be well and happy. Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.